And the first item on the agenda is the acceptance of our March minutes. All members have previously received copies, so I'm assuming you have read them, and I'd like to have a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I move we
A
accept.
motion? Kevin's made a motion.
I second it.
Deborah has seconded. Any need for further discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So if no one objects on the commission, I would like to deviate from our printed agenda and go right to the new business category. And the first item is to review the PDF Conservation Commission draft for the wetland preservation law. That way there, you folks don't have to be on as long if you'd like to do something else this evening. So from the Conservation Commission, would someone like to give us a quick overview and give us some background or whatever you think is appropriate, and then we'll get into a discussion.
All right. Liz, you want to speak? You want me to speak, or what do you want to?
I'm easy either way. I have the document with just the highlights, the 9 highlights, if you want me to share my screen, but I'm also happy, Steve, if you want to take it away, you've got more experience than I.
Yeah, no, you can share it. You can share your screen, but has everybody read it, or do we need to go through some of the changes or some of the
changes from the draft that we received a few weeks ago, or
the change?
or changes from a prior edition?
There's really no changes. What I'm going through is the one that's up online. That's the one. That's the latest. It's up on there. I know some people are having trouble downloading it. I actually tried to download it today and couldn't, but I was able to take us, just copy it down. So that's how I did it. I just highlighted the whole thing.
I'm reviewing. I have read in detail the one that I received on March 22nd.
Okay. Yeah.
From Carol McDonald. That's the one I've been working with.
Yep. That's a good one. All right.
Okay.
So I guess I'd like.
Go from there.
Yep. Okay. I guess I'd like to start it off with asking a question right off the bat. Why do we need a bylaw? And that's been a common question, and it comes down to something quite simple, where each town, each city, each jurisdiction, or whatever you want to call it, has their own character, their own how do I put it? Resources and stuff that they want to protect to keep the town the cities the way they are. So just like there is a state wetlands bylaw or wetlands act, but it does not, it actually covers the whole state. It does not focus on small towns or small areas where that needs to be protected if the town wants. Now, from the feedback we've gotten from the surveys in the past, conservation, the open space land, the hiking has been a high priority on the feedback we've got, so that we've gotten notice that majority of the town wants us to protect and keep the open space and the help with the farms, help with agriculture, help with, I guess that's very important in the town of Berlin, which is also interested in myself. So just like, it's kind of very similar, almost like the state police. We have the state police, but you have your town police, because actually state police have they both got rules of protection, but actually they focus on the whole state, and it's not tailored to a small community. So you bring in your local police to handle that. So it's very similar to the wetlands bylaw. Follows the same procedure, where it's tailored really to the town of Berlin in this case. A lot of the text in that document is actually a repeat of the state bylaw. And the reason for that is really on a legal wording. In other words, if we don't have it in the bylaw, then we really can't act on it. And so many times when we enforce things, we don't really can enforce it. Like, we're not allowed to even offer a fine if somebody violates a order of conditions or to get a certificate of compliance. We can't fine. We don't have any fee structure. We don't have any of that. So this bylaw allows the town to implement such a things to get things done. It does not take away any of the appeal process, anything else. You still got DEP, you still got the same, you know, challenging. So if something comes across us, across the Conservation Commission, and you want to appeal it, those are all, no avenues are stopped or blocked there. It's actually the same process. The only difference is we can do more at our end before it goes up the ladder. So in other words, we can have some enforcement to say, okay, well, if the person doesn't actually meet the requirements of the order of conditions after the permit, then we can try to handle it locally, or it can go up or it can be appealed. So right now, I think I got, that's probably, I think that's within the last year anyhow, over 60% of the towns and cities in the state of Massachusetts have their own bylaw. And that's mainly the reason, so they can tailor it to what's important in their towns and cities. So I guess we'll get into the wetlands. But I wanted to start off the conversation of why we actually need it. And it really is so that we can actually do more and handle more of it in the town. Once you appeal it to a project to DEP, our hands are tied. We're not involved anymore. So that's.
Let me ask you this,
Sure.
if I may.
Yep.
Was this draft prepared by a lawyer with an environmental background?
Yes. It's actually reviewed by Copeland and Page. They've actually reviewed it. They've actually made some changes to make it a lot of legalese, which makes it even more difficult to read for me anyhow.
Well, the reason I asked that question, okay,
Mhm.
is because, first of all, I'm not a lawyer. Secondly, I am not all that familiar in detail, and I am in general terms, but not in detail, with the state environmental requirements, or even the ones relative to agriculture. But I do want to acknowledge that my observation with the draft is that the Conservation Commission has appropriately, if you will, identified the rights and privileges that the agricultural community have under the various wetlands environmental acts with regard to land usage and buildings. So I think what you have incorporated here, and I'm assuming your lawyers have looked at that, it does seem to be consistent with the state agricultural provisions relative to wetlands. In any event, if this goes forward, it will have to get approved by the Attorney General, and if there's any conflict there, I'm sure it would be picked up at that time as well. And furthermore, there's no local bylaw that can override or supersede or cancel or alter a state existing law relative to, in this case, agricultural use adjoining wetlands. So I think that aspect of the draft is, from my observation, has been covered. Let me put it that way.
There is actually even some language in there that says that the no rules and everything have changed to the rights of the agricultural as they stand
Right.
today.
Right. I highlighted that. Yes.
Yes, I did
agree
too.
with
So yes. So no rules change in that way.
I do have one. I got two other points that I want to make eventually, but I don't want to. If you want to continue, please do so. However, or if you
Okay.
want me to
Okay.
throw in my comments.
Oh, sure.
Whatever you like.
Whatever's most helpful to people on this call.
Okay.
I'm
So,
not sure I can answer all your questions, but I'll do my best. But if we can't, we will log it down and get back to you.
okay. Down on the last paragraph on the first page, where you talk about being grandfathered, it says that notwithstanding the foregoing, property that is already developed within the no disturb zone as of the time of passage of this bylaw may be maintained in its current state. Well, if it, and then in brackets, you have the word grandfathered. So if it's grandfathered, I think that should read the bylaw, not may, but shall. Because from a legal point of view, the word shall has a more substantial meaning than may. Again, a fairly minor point, but again, if you're talking grandfather, it's either grandfather or it isn't. And if it's
Correct.
grandfathered, it shall be granted, I think would be the appropriate term.
Right.
So
Okay.
the other observation I have, and we'll get to our other committee members in a minute to see what observations they have. The state law that's been, well, let me back off. The very last article in this draft, Article 9, let's see. Maybe it's not 9. Well, one of these articles, let me just see here. Oh, here it is. Sorry about that. It's in Article 12. It clearly states that the intention of this bylaw, that the purpose, the jurisdiction, authority, et cetera, okay, and other requirements, okay, is to be interpreted and administered as stricter than those under the wetlands protection regulations. So clearly, the intent here, based on what I'm reading in this paragraph, is to make this a much more stringent Wetland Protection Act. Now, I've done a little bit of research, and the articles that are cited, for example, the regulation that's cited, 310, for example, and I'm sure the actual act itself, but regulation 310 in itself is 246 pages long. So we're putting another layer on top of that by such a bylaw. And again, I'm not an expert in state or federal Wetlands Act, but my suspicion is, just knowing our state, which is a great place to live, but however, we do have quite a bureaucracy, is that we perhaps have in the nation, I'm guessing, one of the strongest environmental laws, probably only superseded by the state of California.
Yeah.
But I think we probably have some of the strictest regulations in place in the nation already. And there's a document, the State Wetlands Program Evaluation Phase 4 report, and that was produced by the Environmental Law Institute, and it states that the state, meaning Massachusetts, has developed its own wetland methodology, which is more exacting and more stringent than the CROPS standard. CROPS is an acronym for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineering. Also, there's the National Water Survey on Wetland Resources, United States Geological Survey Water Supply, paper 2425. And in there it states the most comprehensive state programs include those of Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, and it goes on to list 3 or 4 others. So I don't know, from a personal point of view, it just seems to me that what the state currently has is probably more than adequate to protect what we have in town. I think the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board, in the 48 years that I've been living here, have done a fabulous job in protecting open space and managing growth in town to the best of their ability, because I don't think it's a machine that is stoppable. It's inevitable. You know, in the frontier days, everybody moved west, so we're seeing the same thing here.
Mhm.
So that's my observation. I think
Okay.
this is more than what we currently need at the present time. Like, one of
Yeah.
the things that really concerned me when I read it, you know, if there's an applicant and you folks on the Conservation Commission need to go out and get a specialist or an
Mhm.
expert to help you support your position, all those costs get passed on to the applicant. There's no upper limit. I mean, it's an open situation there. And, you know, I think that would be a major financial burden on people.
Mhm.
So that all being said, I'd like to ask the other members of the Agricultural Commission if they have any opinions or observations or comments. And please, you know, jump in and say something.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Buddy?
that, there's a lot there to digest for
I'm sorry, you're breaking up,
people that
sir.
You're
haven't
breaking up
read,
there, buddy.
don't know laws or
Buddy.
whatever. There's a lot there.
Buddy, excuse me. You're breaking up. We can't quite hear you.
I just said, I think the
That's better.
problem is it's very complex. I mean, there's a lot of laws that mixed in between all the, the general laws and all the farm laws and all that in the middle.
Mhm.
People aren't going to understand it.
Right. That's part of the legal part of it, which I kind of agree with you. There actually was a copy going around that actually had it highlighted that actually shows about a third of that document is actually a reproduction of kind of what the Wetlands Protection Act already is. Now, I want to say one thing here. I'm here to answer questions and trying to just bring it up. I'm not here to persuade you to go either way. Okay. That's,
No, I appreciate that.
yeah,
Yep.
no, because I'm a member, but I also have my own personal opinion. And
Okay.
the biggest part, I'm going to be open here because I'll speak for myself, not for the commission. The biggest part I see here is, and this that interests me the most, is we've been trying to implement a 25-foot no-touch policy that really has no weight except for and what that means is wildlife corridor, animals tracked by the length, water runoff, all that kind of stuff that pollutes the water. The 25 feet along the edge is very critical to what actually goes on in that watershed. So like when the turtles come up on there or the deer go down and get water, they seem to follow the streams. That's, you follow the paths even up on Pisgah and stuff. You'll find them go by the streams. So the 25 foot, so we've been trying to implement for quite some time a 25-foot no touch. And right now, since it's not a law, we call it a policy. We attach it to everybody who comes in for a permit. Right now, it's really based on, we have no way to enforce it, but so far we've been getting very good people abiding by it. Even River Bridge and all them, they actually think it's a very good idea. So on here, it does mention the 25-foot no touch. And so that is probably, to me personally, that is the biggest part of this bylaw that is I like. And when we say grandfathered, when you brought up the grandfathering or previous, that's kind of put in there because there's stuff already within the 25 no touch. We can't change that. It's that way today. We're not
Right.
going to change it. We're not going to ask anybody to change it. We're not, it stays the same. So that's kind of why the grandfather is clauses in there, because we're not going back and trying to correct things that
Yeah,
we've
that's why,
missed.
I assumed that, and that was the only reason I was suggesting changing that one word from will to shall, because
Yes.
it's more enforceable that way, if you will.
Mhm. Now I'm going to say this. I've read it a couple times, and it does have more legalese than I like, but that's the way our town attorney and agrees
Right.
it needs to be. but we need to, it can be modified even afterwards, but we can't modify it until we put it on the books.
Mm.
So like right now, we even have a soil importation bylaw, which I'm also on that. And, you know, at our last meeting, we've realized that, ooh, okay, we have this bylaw, but the numbers aren't quite right. So we are meeting to actually tweak it to benefit the town, is to help out saying, okay, so that, you know, right now we think it's a little too tight for people. So we are actually going to vote on that coming up in, I think, the next meeting or meeting after that. But we have a marked up copy that we're working on now. That's for the soil importation, which is something else. But I'm just saying the bylaw here,
Right.
even this, it's for the town. It's not really for just the conservation, but it's to protect the resources that we have now.
Right.
So-
Again, my biggest fear for all that is that what's going to happen is these landowners like myself or whatever,
Mhm.
you're going to have the big boys come in and they're going to tramp the town. You haven't got a choice. I mean, you're almost playing hardball, and you shouldn't be playing hardball. You still got the town people. Stay with the town people. I
Right.
think I see it here, the one down that over 55 just down the street from me.
Hmm.
You know, you got a big corporation in there. You're gonna have a hard time telling them what to do.
Right. We actually can't right now without this bylaw. We have nothing. We can't do anything. We can submit an enforcement order if they break something, but we can't do anything.
You're not gonna be able to do anything with the other way either. That's the problem. They're gonna take out the little guy. It's like a school. The school comes in, the little guys can't bid on a school. It's always the big guys, and the big guys come in, they're gonna trample on you.
Right.
That's going to be the way it's going to be. I mean, unless you decide you want to stay small, you're not going to be able to handle it.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, that's how I see it. The little guys don't get a chance to play.
Right.
Yeah, if I may, the outside developers are putting pressure, and some of these things that, like Steve mentioned, the 25 no disturb, we've gotten burned by that, where they build right up to the edge and pretty much kill all the wildlife in there. And we can't do anything about it. We can ask. Sometimes they play, sometimes they don't play. We've had even areas filled with stuff, couches and junk,
See, the
and
reason
we
why
can't do
they
anything.
won't play, the reason why they won't play is because they don't care about Berlin.
True. True.
You know, they don't care.
Yep.
Can I
So,
say something?
Yes, Louise. Sure thing.
All right, I think the other big thing about this bylaw is the fact that we can now fine these people if they don't play. We've had a few cases where people have filled in the wetlands. We put in an enforcement order. 4 months later, we're still trying to get them to meet the needs. And it's not the people of Berlin who are doing it, it's the people who are coming in. And it's the big guys who are taking advantage of the town. And I think if we don't have this bylaw, they're going to be able to do it a lot more. Anyway, that's my opinion. I think we need the bylaw.
you.
We need the 25 feet. We need the right to fine them.
Maybe the approach, you know, if that's one of the biggest concerns, is to pare this down. I mean, just reading the 8 pages, if you want to try to understand it, is a chore in itself.
Mhm.
I spent my professional years as a contracts manager, so I've read a lot of gobbledygook for 30 plus years, believe me. And this was a challenge to read.
I agree. We can
So
get you
I
a
think if you
copy.
can probably, excuse me, I just want to say, I think if you can kind of simplify it more, okay, and try to achieve your 25-foot limit and things of that nature, I think it might be more receptive. This is a real challenge to absorb, and I'll stop there.
We could get you a copy of the highlighted version where most of it is already taken from the state where we had to repeat it. And then just the highlighted part, is what we added. And
Okay.
let me see. I think it's on the town website, but I'll double check and get back to you.
Don't you love
Right, thank
lawyers?
Well, like I say, I'm not one, but
I'm not
I-
either.
I spent a lot of time reading these type of documents in my professional career, and
Mhm,
this was a bit of a challenge, I have to say.
mhm.
Maybe it's because I'm getting so old too. It doesn't help, particularly with the eyesight. Anybody else
Yeah, it's
like to
look
comment?
I'm looking at the young guys like James. He's not wearing glasses. The rest of us are.
Yeah, right. His day will come. No, Buddy's not wearing any
Oh,
either.
I got him, believe me. I got sitting
You
on the
got him?
fence
Okay.
that
Well, what would you like to do next, folks?
I will say,
Can I ask a question? I'm learning stuff because I've been attending these meetings, but I don't want to interrupt.
Not at all. Go right
Not at all.
ahead, Jen.
We would like your questions.
So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just learned, well, I didn't learn. I understand the 25-foot touch zone, but I did learn a few things from Mr. Wickstrom, which he said what I was trying to say so much more eloquently. My question is, what is the state current law for, you're doing 25-foot. What is the state law?
There isn't one. Yeah, it's up to
Zero.
It's zero. Okay,
Yeah,
that
for,
was one
for the
question.
Rivers Protection Act, it's like you got 200 feet and you got 100 feet. Depends on if it's a stream, a perennial stream, or a water body. Like a lake, it's typically you got, it's 100 feet back. That's already in the state law. It's the perennial streams or the streams that dry up or are not tied to a wetland resource.
Yeah, your intermittent streams, because I have
Yes.
issue with that comment in
Yeah,
it as well.
Yes.
Okay, and
yes.
then my next question, I learned, was nice that Mr. Wickstrom talked about agricultural and the fact that they're not affected, but once, and I don't want to say this because I love Berlin. The farmlands, if and when they ever were sold, would have to then follow this Wetland Protection Act, correct? It only protects the wetland if it stays in agricultural, correct? I mean,
Well-
they are only allowed to do it because it stays in agricultural. If it were sold and was out of agricultural, they would have to follow these new guidelines, correct? I wanted to
That's
make sure I understood that. And then my last question was, you're talking about the big guys coming in. Do 40Bs have to follow this? Does that revert back to the state? Because to
yes.
me, those are the developments you want to not come into town personally. I'd rather see two really nice, houses on 10 acres than 30, 40Bs on 10 acres. And I think I need to have that clarified for me as well.
I believe you are correct on that. I think if a 40B comes in, they override because the state takes over. It's similar to like the power lines and the stuff that goes right along Northbrook and stuff. I mean, we're not allowed, and they say do not spread, herbicides and all this stuff along the water bodies. You're supposed to keep it back and not fertilize. But when the railroad comes through, they're very nice and they notify us, but we have no say in the matter. So certain, like you said, the big guys, they got their rules and we're not going to change them.
Well, what would the railroads do? I guess I'm confused there now that you've thrown that curve at me.
Okay, no, they do some spraying and cutting along, and that goes right by 40 Ks. Where the right along there and
Yeah,
right along. You'll see it in town.
time from my house to
Right.
friends. But I mean, if they didn't trim back the brush, they wouldn't be able to let the train go through.
Right. Okay. Well, cleaning back the brush is one thing, but when you start putting the herbicides down to
I
actually
see.
kill,
Okay.
that's the part, because the runoff goes into the
Northbrook.
and actually there's a nice wetland back there with a lot of bird houses and everything there along just before you get to 40 Ks.
And then my last question, you talk about the big guys coming in and not the Berlin contractors. Thank God, because I live with one. But I just was curious, how many have not abided by, like, how many are we talking? Are we talking 1? Are we talking 20? How many have you actually had violate the 25-foot no-touch policy? I'm just curious on that number as well.
Oh, geez, I don't think I can quote you a number, but I believe right now we've probably had about, I can name 5 or 6 right now. I know even Riverbridge by that fire pond, and then they put the road right next to it. We asked them to move it, and it's a policy. We actually had to kind of let it go. We tried to push back, and we had nothing to push on because we don't have a bylaw. There's a few places like that.
But I guess that's what I learned from Mr. Wickstrom. Even if we have this policy and bylaw in place, they can appeal to the state, and if the state says okay, they say okay. I'm trying to understand this because I really want to.
Yeah, no,
But
I
have
understand.
a lot of questions.
Yeah, no, this is good. The state, since we don't have that bylaw, they can say, okay, it doesn't exist. If it does exist in the town, they will adhere to it. I mean, they'll honor it. It can't be any less strict. It can't be any less strict than the state law that already exists, because they got their rules. They got their threshold set. If we want to up the thresholds, we can, but that's a town decision.
But you just told me they didn't have a threshold.
They don't on 25-foot touch. They do not.
Right.
They
So
haven't.
if somebody wanted to appeal that at the state, could they?
You can always appeal. You never take the appeal process. That's a democratic process. You can always appeal, and DEP will always be there no matter what the project is. But if there's if there's nothing on the books, like right now with a no 25-foot, which we just had one go through, actually, I don't want to mention names, but just had one go through actually about 2 months ago, where, I don't want to mention names. So anyway, it was appealed to DEP. We actually denied it. And DEP came right back and says, well, there is no bylaw. So they said, well, we can't act on it. So we can't honor something that doesn't exist, even though it was a policy, it's not a law. And so now they're building a bridge over the wetlands. The lot actually had approval for a house before the wetlands, but in this case, the owner would he wanted his house way in, the builder in this case wanted to put a house way in the back in the woods, which granted, it's nicer, you're further away from the road, but now you're in the wetlands. He's on the other side on a hill, and
He's crossing.
yeah.
Well, the thing that I have brought to my attention in the last couple of weeks, because I've been driving Route 2, and you'll see the trees in the middle of the wetlands, which those wetlands weren't wetlands until Route 2 went in, and now they've caused all those wetlands because trees. I mean, you look, there's stone walls built through there. So now we have something that got put in, and it's actually created wetlands versus trying to protect them. So I don't know. I'm still trying to learn and understand, I guess, is what I needed to say.
That's good. That's
Mr.
good.
Wickstrom, thank you for all you said, because it really helped me.
You're quite welcome. Anybody else? Deborah, did you?
I don't feel that I have enough. I looked at it and I don't have enough background information or knowledge to say one way or the other. I'm learning,
Fair enough.
just like Janet right now.
All right, fair enough. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Kevin?
so most of us longtime farmers in Berlin really don't need to worry about this bylaw because we've been here long enough that we'll be all grandfathered in, correct?
That's correct. The agriculture, if you're doing agriculture on it and it stays in agriculture or doing that, you should not see a change at all. But let's say
That's what I
yeah. Now, if you were going to sell that land, take it out of agriculture and have it developed, then we would kick this bylaw in.
Right.
But we have, as a conservation, one of our main goals here is to preserve land and water resources. And, hopefully now with the CPA that's gone through, we have first right of refusal on a lot of the farms, and that is our highest priority of all that stuff, is protecting the farms and the land in town. And it might be mostly by buying development rights versus buying a property, because we don't have that kind of money. And so we have that. That's actually one of our highest priorities on our conservation list as far as protection. And the next thing is all the water resources.
Buddy, you had a question?
The
Buddy?
only thing I was gonna add is that the state is the worst culprit for your conservation right along.
Mhm.
I mean, every major road that goes through and gets oiled goes into some waterway. So
True.
you're like talking to the villain, you know what I mean?
I know it's we this bylaw or whatever it is, we can't solve the world's problems here, and there's a lot that's still going to go on. You just have to niddle away at it and do your best, try to protect.
Yeah, well, that's my point. We're trying to, you're taking away the building part of it from the little guy, whether it be Mike or whoever in town here. And when the big boys come in, you are got a handful. And Louise made a point about the fines. They don't care about fines. They'll pay the fines. It's not a big deal.
Mhm.
We're going to slap them. So what?
Yeah.
They don't care. You saw the malls. You see how they work. They don't care. It's all about the big bucks.
Well, one thing.
All right.
Can I mention one
Oh.
thing? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Kevin.
go ahead. Kevin, you got the floor.
I've got one thing to say.
Mhm.
Back when they built Eco Village up near me,
Mhm.
and I went to the engineers and the people that were buying into it and showed them, explained to them how this pond that was up there was actually, the water went into the ledge, came down the ledge underneath the road and stuff, down and fed one of my wells. And I was actually able for them to actually engineer it all so that they actually made it better. So there's more water feeding my well now than there was before, because they made sure everything drained into that pond that's still up there. So sometimes you just got to fight for your own, right.
No, it's
Right. Right. But if
Because-
we just look the other way, I guess I go the other side of the fence. If we just say, okay, well, wait a minute, do we need a conservation commission then? If we're not going to try to protect any of this stuff, so that we're just trying to say, how can we manage the best for the town? Now it's for the town. They said the last census or the paper that went out, conservation and agriculture was a high priority in this town. That's why we have a right to farm and everything. So we're trying to do what we can to preserve as much as we can. Are we going to win? That's a different, can't tell you that.
because I was able to show them that they're back, 150 years ago, they used to, this well I have on my property, they had a windmill in it and they used to pump the water. Pipes are still there up to this well, up to this pond, and let it flow back down for gravity purposes.
Yep.
And they were amazed that, I was able to prove that, and then they went ahead and protected me, you might say, so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of things change. Even me, I'm on Barnes Hill Road, and even at the bottom, I've been here 40 something years, but anyway, there used to be a pipe at the bottom. People were filling water jugs there. And I don't, yeah, he's laughing. He remembers that. And that
I remember it.
Yep. And there's a pond out behind me that I've actually ice skated on many years ago. It doesn't exist today. It's gone, dry, never holds water again.
That's like the pond on Walnut Street, right? That is part of the Chedco property that's down from Tolman's. When
Mhm.
I was a little girl, that pond was great. We did, tadpoles and eggs for school. And I mean, it was an amazing little pond. I don't think it's as big as a quarter now.
Mm.
And it hasn't been cleaned out, but that was like part of Mr. Cotting's deal. I mean, he cleaned that out and the cows would eat at the stream, and it was lovely. And now it's nothing but a swamp in there.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because I don't know who owns that. Mike owned it at one time, but I don't know who owns it now. But we're losing all these little tiny ponds. I skated on the pond you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised Horseshoe is not more filled in than it is.
Yep. We're even losing the pond up on Pisgah up there. It's all growing in the size there. I've ice skated. It used to be a bench up there. I used to hike up there and ice skate years ago. Now you can't, because even when it freezes, the weeds have gone so high that it's in the ice.
Big Hole is getting the same way on both sides of the pond. I mean, it's really sad.
Mm.
I'm showing my age.
I'm the same
So
way.
Steve, would you like, with the Conservation Commission, like a written position from us or?
We would
further
like your
statements,
feedback.
or-
We would like your feedback. We really do. 'Cause
Okay.
it's for the town. We're just the
No, I understand.
organization committee that's trying to put this through to get some protection. But it's what the town wants, okay? And what can
Yeah.
we do? Like, I agree with what Buddy's saying. The big boys, how are we going to compete?
We appreciate it's well intended, certainly.
Mhm.
As I stated earlier, I think the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board, both over the 48 years or whatever it is that I've been in town, have done a great job and have worked diligently to protect open space, farmland, and the quality of life that we enjoy here in Berlin. So I think our commission comes from the same approach. We try to do what we think is best for the town. And I know I personally, and I'm sure other commission members here recognize that the Conservation Commission is trying to do the same. I just think that this is a horrific document for the average citizen to try to swallow in town, to be honest with you.
Please make a strong
I think it's
statement
just
of
too
that.
much.
Yeah, when you in your reply,
Pardon me?
in your reply, please make a strong statement of that, because we actually tried
Okay.
to do that, and once they
Okay.
try to make it a legal document, all of a sudden it just takes off with all this legal stuff. We can't get around that.
No, I
Yeah.
understand.
Steve, do you know where that highlighted document is? I couldn't find it on our web
It's
page.
the old document, Liz. It's not the updated one with the changes from the lawyer from the other night. And I'm not able to download it either.
Mhm.
So, but that's not the same. That's not the most recent one that was up there.
Okay, thanks.
Janet, you can take and highlight the whole thing and then Control C, Control V, and put it into a Word doc. You lose some of the formatting. I know we should get the PDF working. Something's wrong with the web page, but that I actually did that, so then I could highlight it, make my notes on that document, and
Yes, somebody did that for us too.
Yeah.
Is there more to be said on this agenda item?
no,
Um,
we're just here to answer questions.
Yep. And I want to appreciate the farms in town. I grew up in Northborough and watched all the farms drop and turn into suburbia. And I want to do hats off for the farms in town. So
Well, we
thanks.
try to continue to support that activity. It's more challenging every year.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
agree.
I know. Really.
I agree.
I missed the farm truck going up the hill every other day. No more.
Yeah. I agree.
All right, if you folks want to join us, you can welcome to stay on. We're gonna, unless there's some other issue we need to discuss on this particular point, I'd like to go back to our original agenda, unless I hear
Right.
any objections
Thank
or
you.
concerns from anybody. Pardon me?
Very much for your time.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for attending. We appreciate your input. We appreciate the work you've done and the insight that you've given us this evening. And we will try to formulate an appropriate response.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you both.
Yep.
Everybody, 3 of you, 4 of you.
Oh, we're growing. Bye now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take
gonna
care.
stay
Thank
for a
you.
I'm going to stay for a little bit longer, but then I'm going to jump to planning board at 8 so I can hear what their town
Okay,
warrant articles are
we'll try
about.
to move on. Let's go to the next agenda item, which is the treasurer's report.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So, Deb, I did get the deposit of $50 for what I believe is that replacement check from Michael DeTurk.
Yes,
Okay, I got that this afternoon. So that makes our grant fund balance currently $873.76. Our donation account, $2,735 and a penny. And our budget funding is $1,030.
All right, very good.
And there's still some fluctuations coming in and out of that, but it's yeah.
I just got 2 checks today. There's always someone who comes in at the 11th hour, as we all know. And, but I won't be depositing them because I'm going away tomorrow, so they won't be in the account for a while.
And what's the total of the checks?
I can't, I'll go grab them.
No, that's okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Donation though, right?
Well, just because one of them was funky, it was like $11 and something cents.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I think it was a
We'll
donation.
cover it. We'll cover it in the next meeting.
Okay.
All right. Very fine. Let me just mention while we're on the subject of the grant and the monies, I finally got around to submitting a reimbursement for $128.63 for the Griffin bill for ground cloth and staples. That's reflected in Laura's numbers of the balance of $873.76. But late in the day today, I don't know if you saw it, I did distribute it to you all. There were emails received from our town accountant and our town administrator. The town accountant had questioned whether that sum should have been charged to our donation account and not to the grant money account. Apparently there was a communication difficulty or issue. The town administrator responded, put me on distribution, and I sent it to you all so you can read the details. I didn't send it out till about 6:30 this evening when we found it on the computer. It came in late in the day. But all of this is allowable under the grant. That was the issue, okay? So there was just a misunderstanding, and I think it's clarified. And I think the town administrator did an excellent job of clarifying that point. So when you read those emails, it's been a resolved issue. So I just wanted to point that out since we were talking about the grant money. So you've heard the funding that's available. You have a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
I move we accept it.
Kevin's made a motion. Can I have a second? Buddy's made a second. Any need for discussion? Hearing no need for discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good. Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item, which I've misplaced the agenda. Here it is. Here we are. Incoming correspondence. And while Scott is here and he's got a time limit, let me just interject. He had sent me an email regarding mosquito control spraying. Apparently there was a citizen in town that asked the board, because that person is a beekeeper, what he could do, or she, whatever the person was, to avoid spraying adjacent to their property. And I forwarded to Scott the state regulation, if you will, or provision that allows people such as beekeepers, and I've been opting out myself for the last 40+ years, to do the same. So I hope that worked for you, Scott.
Yeah, what is new is that towns can opt out now.
Oh, okay.
And we obviously for this year's mosquito control system, it's late, but whether or not Berlin is a town, because we have so many farms and so many beekeepers, we might want to save the farmers from trying to remember every year and opt out as a town. The requirement is if we opt out of a town, we have to come up with our own town-wide mosquito control plan. And so I am doing a little bit of research, like we give the Central Regional Mosquito Control Board some money. every year so they could do this spraying, and whether or not any of that money could come back to the town if we did our own mosquito control. And I have no idea how we'd get to all the little pools of water that develop all over town where the mosquitoes are in. But I was willing to do this, do a little bit more work so that potentially next year we could decide whether or not as a town, is it worth as a town opting out instead of having the individual farms opt out.
Very good, because, you know, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he stops in at my farm every so often. He's into flowers. And he and I have had lengthy conversations on this subject. And my personal opinion, you know, I know the disease that the mosquito spread is they're horrible. The encephalitis is a horrible situation. But on the other hand, you know, I got 2 culverts out on Linden Street. They're never touched. If those were touched with some sort of insecticide, that would be a better benefit to me anyways, and the neighbors, than running up the street and spraying and just relying on drift. Behind my property, I'm 300 plus feet from the road, and behind my property is wetlands. All right. There's no impact on the mosquitoes down there. I mean, it's just too far of a distance. And he sort of agreed with me, but that's the way, you know, he said, well, we rely on drift. Well, that's what I'm worried about, the drift, because down that part of my property is where my beehives are. So my personal point of view is he'd be much better off. We don't have sidewalks in the majority of town. There aren't people walking, you know, on a regular basis. Yeah, we do have people walking, but if they would take care of the culverts where the mosquitoes do thrive, I think that would be better than just randomly spraying up the street. Anyways, I hope the information was helpful.
It was helpful, and I probably want to revisit this at like over the winter when you guys are at a slower time period.
Yeah,
and we have
that'd
time
be-
to
that'd be
figure out
really great.
where the right balance is. Yeah. So we can let this go for now, and I'll do. I here to do some more research, and we'll see what we can do for the fall or winter.
Okay, very good. Laura, do you have more correspondence?
The only things that I picked up from the town offices were the news and views from
Oh, yes.
Bureau. And there was one farm preservation disclosure,
Okay,
and that was it.
all right.
Other
Any,
than, you know, financial stuff, so.
okay. Any emails that we should?
Yep, a few. And one thing that I was thinking about is, so that I don't bore everybody, do you want me to just skip over all the newslettery stuff that comes in, or I don't know?
Yeah, I think, you know, pick what everything is really relevant and current that might benefit.
Not a lot, so.
All right, benefit us locally.
There is a NCRS sent out apply now for a summer internship program. I don't remember where it was. I think there was a farm in Harvard, but their security education stuff is back, and I did complete one assignment this afternoon, so we're pretty much up to date on that, I think.
Okay.
Let's see, MDAR viability grant programs, if anybody wanted to, it's an application period is open for that. The due date is April 29th. There was, NRCS was seeking I think it came from NRCS. Anyway, seeking farmers with alfalfa stands for a research study, which I don't think any of us have, but and then DLS alert, Farm Value Advisory Commission for fiscal year 22 recommended chapter land values. Didn't know if anybody, you know, was interested in looking at that stuff. Opportunity
that's
to
available
wetland
for the assessor's office too.
Oh, okay, good. And then NOFA is hiring pollinator network coordinator. Let me think. Oh, one more, another grant deadline from MDAR was June 11th. And then USDA announces funding available to organizations to assist socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers under pandemic assistance for Producers Initiative.
Okay.
Everything else was either past the due date or like more of the news and views kind of things.
All right. If anybody would like any of that information, you all know how to contact Laura, and I'm sure she'd be glad to forward it to you.
I certainly would.
Thank you.
And the rest of it will just be in the minutes when I publish them, so.
Very good. All right, moving on to old business. You'll recall sometime back, I mentioned was a piece of state legislation having to do with AgComs and Board of Healths. That legislation, and it's a regulation that was in review. And that has become legislation, has become a law, I should say, excuse me. And this was summarized in the Farm Bureau fairly recent edition. So what this has to do with, you'll recall, is that the Farm Bureau submitted a bill which the governor has signed that essentially gives agricultural commissions 45 days to review any Board of Health regulation that impacts agriculture before the regulation can go into effect. This gives agricultural commissions time to review the regulation, collect public input, and provide input to the Board of Health. The law does not require the Board of Health to make changes based on the AgCom input. But at least now we have to say, it hasn't been an issue in this town. I know it has been in other towns, particularly down where the cranberries are being grown and stuff like that, but it hasn't been an issue in the town of Berlin. I think we have a good working relationship with the Board of Health members. So there's been no issue there, but it is available. This impacts farmers markets and all other agriculture related activities. So if something comes up in the future, at least we have an opportunity to hold a public hearing within a 45-day period to air out any concerns we may have and have a dialogue with the Board of Health to see if we could reach some sort of a compromise if necessary. But like I say, there have been no issues. I just want to make you aware of the law. So that's that one. Moving on, again, the next under old business is the security camera potential at the community garden. I think we still want to put that on hold until we see where we are funding wise. And we may have to go back to the state and ask for approval if we want to spend money for that. But let's see where we are at the bottom line of funding before we make any commitment there. We've earmarked $500 for reshingling of the roof, which Buddy has agreed to take on sometime this coming season. And we'll first have to coordinate with the highway department for purposes of removing the solar panel, which was donated to the cemetery commission, which I understand the highway department is now in charge of the cemetery grounds. So that'll work out well. Okay, going into new business. We've covered the first subject on the Conservation Commission. Let me just ask, now that you all heard the various points of views relative to this draft bylaw, do you have any, do we have any kind of consensus amongst us? Or, and also, do you have any opinion or any approach on how we want to respond to this draft? I will attempt to put something together, and before I release it, I'll send it out to you for comment. So if you have some opinions there, please give me some input right now on that subject, so I know how to approach the draft that I'll be preparing. Anybody? Buddy? Yes.
My approach is the horse has been running down the street and we're gonna close the barn door.
Okay.
Like, you know,
The horse is already out of the barn, so close the door.
Yeah,
Okay.
you do it right on when you said about, you know, it's too much to comprehend all at once, and
Yeah.
they were supposed to come to us before they put it on the warrant to get our review, and now they put it already on the warrant, you don't have anything to say.
Okay.
Were there two things that they wanted to make stricter, the 25-foot no-touch policy, and then was I wasn't, I don't have enough understanding of all of the issues, so I didn't follow everything, but the two things that they wanted to tighten up were the 25-foot no-touch, and then was the other the soil importation? Was that the second thing that they were trying to make stricter?
No, that's
I
a whole different thing.
I didn't gather that. I didn't gather that that was the second major point they were trying to.
That's a whole different thing.
Okay, so what was the second? I thought they had said there were two things that they were trying to make stronger than the state law.
Well, the 25-foot one was one.
I think they're the fines. They were talking about.
Yeah,
the
fines.
Being able to fine people.
Fine. I think
fining them-
everybody's right.
Okay, so they were trying to make the fines more
They have
severe.
no authority to impose fines.
Yeah.
And this bylaw would give them that authority.
Okay, and the fines would be according to all of the laws or all of the regulations, or just that 25-foot,
All of them.
all of them? Okay,
All of them.
so they are trying to set it up so that now it's making a little bit more sense to me, so that they could try to handle things at the local level, try to deal with it at the local level, and then if they weren't able to handle it, it would have to go to the state for
Right.
mitigation or whatever they do, the appeal process. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I believe that's a reasonably good summary. Yes.
Yeah. that's
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
I think the other issue that's a little confusing is that they've like I said, they all the laws or general laws of the Massachusetts, unless you're somebody who's kept up on it, you haven't any idea what those
No, it's
make
crazy.
sense of what they're talking about in the
That-
whole.
That's why I pointed out the one regulation they cite here, this 310. It's 246 pages long.
Yeah.
You know, it covers everything from the seacoast deterioration due to ocean waves to somebody's frog pond. I mean, you know, it's,
That was the whole thing. Is it's going to be so hard to decipher and try to get the people on the general public that's sitting at the meeting to understand what it means.
Exactly, so they really have to zero in on the specifics of how it affects Berlin, because they did say something about to be able to protect the unique environments in the various towns.
right.
Okay. I guess I understood it more than I thought.
Very good summary.
Really like to see the highlighted version that they were talking about, so that I know, like, there's nothing thrown in there that,
Yeah, I think Liz has agreed to send it to me, and if I receive that, I'll certainly forward it to everybody.
yeah.
Okay, that would be
And I
good.
think if they're gonna try to sell it at town meeting, it might move them to actually make just a sheet to hand out that kind of summarizes rather than having people read that whole document.
Yeah.
You know, summarizes, this
Stacy
is,
looking like Kevin right now.
All right, thank you for your input. I will attempt to draft something, and before I hand it in, you'll all have an opportunity to tear it apart.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, moving on, the next new business agenda. I'm obligated to tell you that, you know, I submitted a bill for $195 and 34 cents for 4 timbers, 8 cement blocks, and cable ties. And I used the town highway department's credit card for that, so that's been submitted and is reflected in, again, Laura's budgetary numbers. I also paid a $10.42 electric light bill. That's the next item on the agenda, just so you're aware. Community garden status report. Great, somebody else gets a chance to talk. Deborah?
I thought I had already done enough.
No, not yet. You're not off the hook yet.
Okay. Well, a lot's been going on down there. It's looking good if anybody's gone by, and I appreciate everything that people have done, Buddy, getting that loam down there so we could get things filled in, and Carl, the stuff to put those beds up, and James bringing that front end loader down to fill. It helped to move things along. So we got landscaping cloth down in the designated disabled raised beds area, which is right off the handicapped area. And those are the ones that are raised on the timbers that Carl was just talking about. So those 2 beds are in and filled. And then on the other side of the shed, we put in 2 of the ones that are not raised, the ones that are going to be down on the ground that are about 2 feet high. And Carl is going to be talking in a little bit about asking you for money, or not asking you for money, but asking for money to go towards raising 2 more of them. We have a lot of interest from older gardeners, and the raised ones are certainly more conducive to them getting in there and doing some gardening rather than down on the ground. So I thought it was a better idea, rather than laying the 4 on the ground, only making them 2 feet tall, that if we could raise 2 more up, giving us a total of 6 of the beds that are raised up for my height, about chest high, which is really easy to work. So that's all looking great. Buddy, James used a good part of the loam, and we're not in any hurry to get another load down there right now. But if you, when you go to cultivate the field, if you would take a look at it, I think, James, if I'm correct, you said there was about a yard left down there, and we probably would need 1 more to fill the 2 other raised beds and the lower raised bed that Dave is going to donate.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so if you could look at it, Buddy, that would be really helpful. And if you don't think you need to bring any more down, that's fine too. But we have to fill 2 of the really big ones, and then the one that Dave is making is only going to be 10 inches high. So it's probably about half the amount going in that really low one. So about 2.5 times what you're seeing there.
Excuse me, Deborah.
Yeah,
Let me ask Buddy a question. Buddy, you donated that first load of loam, which is greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Deborah was just talking about. If there's additional loam that's required, do you need to be paid for that, or?
It's just a matter of, like I said, I've just, like she said, finding out what we need, and I'm going to be down there doing multiple things there. I got to do the what do they call it, the slope, or whatever you
The
call
ramp,
it.
the ramp.
And
Yeah.
Putting that final board on that I forgot to put on.
Okay,
Minor details, you know.
all right.
If
I just
what
wanted to check with you because, that was, I don't know how many yards that was. I saw the pile. I'm not good at calculating those sort of things, but it was appreciable amount of soil.
it
And
was roughly 8 yards.
all right, and if we need more, and if you donated that, but if you need to be paid for additional, well, speak up, and we'll
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Not a problem.
okay. All right, I'm sorry, Deborah. Go
that's
ahead.
okay. So the rest of the information, we have 24 Berlin gardeners, and we have 9 out-of-town gardeners that I think we're going to be able to accommodate all of them right now. And I've got to kind of jiggle around things and do a map, which I have a preliminary one mapped out. I've just been waiting for the final deadline of April 15th for the last of the Berlin gardeners to crawl out from under the woodwork to make a request. So of the 20 by 20s, it's going to come out to somewhere between 25 and 27 requests for those. I'm just going to have to, maybe deny some of the out-of-town gardeners if they ask for 2, just 1. 10 by 10s they're going to run between about 11 and 17. Again, it's a matter of playing a numbers game. And then all of the raised beds have been requested. So they are all taken care of.
So that brings us up to 32 participants at the garden.
Yep. Wait, I've got 33.
33, okay.
24 Berlin and 9
Oh,
out
yeah.
of town.
Yeah, I can't add.
That's
33.
okay. I seen that in action the other day too.
Okay. You gotta give all the secrets away, huh?
I know, I'm sorry. They know, they just want to hear me say it. So I think that's, I did email Dave and ask him if he could make the bed a little bit, if he could make it 3 by 8 so that it
Right.
stays within the same size as the big tubs that we're putting in. I haven't heard back from him, so if I don't hear back from him in a couple days, I'll follow up just in case it got, lost in the shuffle, or he could be
Right.
on vacation, who knows? I know he's always very good about getting back.
Right.
So I think that's basically my report. I don't
Okay.
think there's anything else you need to know.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you, Deborah.
Okay.
The next subject is tilling and compost. So Deborah, you've issued an email to the gardening people that the garden will be open on the 15th of May. So I was thinking, and of course it depends on Buddy's schedule and everything else and the weather, but maybe we could wait this year as long as the first week in May to till it. So it won't be standing there too long before the garden is open, and get compacted if it rains and stuff like that. Is
I
that
thought Buddy would appreciate that timeline.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm
That-
fine with it. Don't-
sometime during the first week in May to till the garden? Okay, very good. All right, and then the second, and by the way, in our FY21 budget, we have $300 for both fall and spring planting, so that means $150 for the spring planting. You still good with that, buddy?
That's fine.
Okay,
I'll survive with that.
all right, very good. So the other component here is compost. Again, we had 10 yards in there, I believe, at $30 a yard. We still have quite a bit of FY monies left. Where's my,
And I
Notes.
thought we had said that we were going to look at doubling the amount.
Yes,
because we
that's what
doubled
I'm-
The size.
that's what I'm gonna get to. I'm trying to find my financial figures that Laura gave a couple of minutes ago. So she said, in our FY21 budget, we have $1,030. So we're almost into May. The only bill that I foresee coming on a regular basis is the utility bill. These days, they've been running $10 and change. That's going to increase as we get closer to opening up the garden and things of that nature. So I don't think we have, let's see, we're in April. I don't think we have the April bill yet. So we got April, May, June, and we got 3 more months before the next fiscal year kicks in. So if we said $20 or $25 each month for the electric light bill, we're talking, $60, $75, something of that magnitude. So that still leaves us with quite a bit of monies in the FY21 account. So I would propose, given that we had to expand the garden and given that we have more raised beds this year, that we up the amount of compost if Buddy can provide it. What, do you have a particular number in mind, Deborah? I think we're still talking $30 a yard, are we, sir?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. So, how many yards do you think we need?
So if we did 30 last year and we doubled the garden, we need at least 60. And then if we have a little extra money to throw in, do you want to kick it up to about 80?
Actually, we did 10
It was
yards.
10,
Oh,
yeah.
you did
Yeah.
10. Okay,
10
so
yards
10 at
left.
30 was 300. Okay, so
Right.
10, 20, so maybe 25 times
I think
30.
The key is also where you want to put it. So you want to keep it accessible to whoever is going to use it. I mean, I remember last one year we did it in 2 different spots, but you might
Yeah,
want to.
And I would definitely want it in 2 different spots this year. I don't know if you've been by the garden. I've had Dave put the wood chips in four different places. So that there's 2 that are available to the back of the garden and 2 piles that are available to the front. So if we could,
I haven't been down. I haven't been down to look, to be honest with you. My son brought the loam down for
loam
you.
down, okay.
He texted me, called me, where to dump it. I'm like, okay, you know how that goes. So hopefully it was
then-
where it was supposed to be.
Could we put, if we did, I don't know, Carl, do math for me. If we
Yeah,
do-
I got the calculator right here.
If we do,
Why don't we do 3 8-yard or I say 8-yard loads, but something of that nature, 8 to 9 yards to make it the 30, whatever you guys want, and put it in 3 different spots. And you can maybe find a spot for the people that do the raised beds and the people that do the gardens, kind of. But that's up to you guys. I'm willing to do wherever you want, but
okay, yeah, there could be a load put just beyond where the raised beds are on the other side of the shed, because there'll be 7 raised beds there. And then on the other side of the garden, maybe where the 2 wood chip piles are.
okay. What I said, it doesn't have to be known right now. You need to think about it.
So how many total yards times $30?
Like
But you was talking, you want to do
25.
20, 25, something like that, we can do that.
25, yeah. 25.
$750 worth of compost?
Excuse me?
$750 worth of compost?
That's fine, yeah.
Can I have a motion from someone that we expend for the community garden a total of $750 out of the FY21 account for 30 yards of compost?
I move we accept it.
Okay, motion's been made and
Second,
seconded. Need for further discussion? Hearing no need, all in favor?
Right?
Aye, aye, unanimous, everybody? Okay.
Yep.
That's what we'll do. So 30 yards of compost, 25
Again,
yards,
Deborah, I'm flexible.
25 yards of compost.
Okay, Deborah, I'm flexible, so where you tell me where you want to dump it when we get ready,
Okay.
whatever works,
Ian-
don't worry about it.
We'll be in contact. I'm gonna be away, so we're gonna have to talk on the phone.
That's fine.
Hold
You're
on.
better with the
Contact.
phone than the email?
Real better than on the phone.
Okay, all right,
I
You
do
may-
text, so if you can text, I can do text.
all right. So when it's looking about time for you to do that, if you would text me or call me and I'll let you know, because we're not opening the garden until the 15th of May, so there's a
And when
lot
do you
of,
get home?
the 13th.
The 13th, okay. I mean, I can do it the 15th, that's not a problem. I mean, it's right around that same time you get home, that's not a big deal.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna mark out the garden the day I get home, and then I've called them all in to do the mulching the next 2 days, and then they can be ready to roll. So I know you're busy, and it gives you a good amount of time to work it into the schedule, and if one day's better than another, but yeah, by the 15th, that would be terrific.
Okay, no problem.
All right, very good. Glad you two worked that out and I didn't have to get in between. I overlooked an agenda item, community garden fee schedule. Deborah, would you like to address that, please?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what triggered it, but
Well, you indicated in an email to me the number of out-of-town people and the time spent chasing and things of that nature.
well, and I also feel that we're spending Berlin taxpayer money
Yep.
to support the garden. And there's a lot of people coming, and it's wonderful. I'm not taking away from that, but I know a lot of towns, or if you take a class in their rec program, if you're out of town, you pay a little bit more. If you sign up for a class, whatever, and you're not a member, you pay a little bit more. So do we want to think about this? I don't think a decision has to be made now, but if
Right,
you have people who are coming from out of town, Berlin's paying the electricity, Berlin's paying for the compost, the
Right.
tilling, all the repairs, all the special things that are going on, and they're
Yeah.
paying the same amount of money that the Berlin residents are paying, then maybe we should think about putting in a fee schedule like that, that if you're making the application and you're from a surrounding town, maybe you pay $5 more, $10 more to help defray the cost of what they're doing.
I think those are all excellent points that you raise in relative to the cost of operating the garden. And I think also, we certainly wouldn't change the fee schedule until coming season, not
Right.
this season, but next
Right.
year. So I think it's good to bring this subject up at this time. And why don't we plan sometime in the coming winter months when we're looking at our regulations again and bylaws and stuff of that, whatever, that you could perhaps put a plan together showing us what our existing fee schedule is and what your recommendation would be for out-of-town participants. Is that
All right.
agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, I can do that. And I guess the other question I would have with that is, I think we'd have to talk, maybe I'd have to talk to the town administrator and see if that is something that is, if this is something that we've done before, or is it something that we, I mean,
Well,
who
the
knows? There's
way we
rules
normally
all over the
approach
place.
the way we normally approach this in the past is we would come up with our plan, what we think the adjustments should be, and get a consensus. That would have to be reflected in our rules and regulations. And then we would bring that to the attention of the town administrator that we plan to make that change.
Okay.
Although she has the authority in town to approve or deny something like that, but basically, this goes into our donation account. We're sort of an autonomous organization with respect to that, more or less. So we can come up with our proposal and say, this is what we want to do, and inform them. So I don't think we have to be overly concerned about getting their approval, but it's appropriate to let them know that that's what we want to do. But first, we ought to reach the consensus and come up with a plan and then present it to them, would be my approach. All right, moving on. So as Deborah mentioned, we still have 2 more of these 8-foot long galvanized watering tanks that we're using for raised beds. We have 2 sitting on the surface. We have 2 in the handicap area that are raised using cinder blocks and timbers. And Deborah would like, and I agree, that we should raise 2 more in the regular area, if you will, for us old folks who have difficulty bending over and make it easier to garden if they're elevated. So to accomplish that, we would need to purchase 4 more timbers. I have in the agenda 16 cement blocks, but I got an email from Michael Dalrymple this afternoon saying that he might not be able to attend because of his long schedule, getting ready for the spring. But he has several cinder blocks that he's not, or cement blocks, I should say, that he's not using and is willing to donate. So I think we don't have to purchase them. If he can give us 16 of them or thereabouts, that will be one less expense. So I will contact him and say, great, we'll take them. So anyways, once we get those blocks from him, there's a need for some fairly sturdy hooks and eyes for the garden doors, community garden shed doors, to hold them open so the wind doesn't take them when people are coming and going. We need a hose hanger with a faucet on to install that in the handicap area so that water is readily accessible in that area. We have existing hose that we can use to bring the water from the right side of the shed over to the left side where the handicap area is. But we will need a lightweight hose in the handicap area I have been using at my place these zero gravity hoses. They're quite durable. They're very lightweight. They're easy to use. So I think we ought to purchase one of those, a 25 footer would be adequate, and a water nozzle. So my estimate at the time was $275, and that included the need for 16 cement blocks at about $2 a piece. So with Michael giving us the blocks, that number of 275 is inflated by about $32, more or less. So if you all agree, we should proceed in doing that. I would appreciate your authorization to allow me to go out and make that purchase. I will again try to use the highway department's credit card to do that as well.
Carl, there's one other thing, and I may have missed it if you said it, was the splitter for the faucet. I know we had one there, but when I rethought it, it belonged to one of the gardeners.
Okay,
So I didn't know if maybe we wanted to purchase one for the garden.
yes, that's a good point. We did discuss that and I forgot about it. She's talking about like a manifold, you screw it onto a faucet and has about 3 places you can hook up a water hose to it. And we would put that on the faucet that's on the right side of the shed. So the 30 some odd bucks that's in the 275 ought to cover that. We'll get a brass one.
Ooh.
So could I have a motion that authorizes me to spend up to $275 for these items I just summarized?
I move we accept it.
Okay, motions are made. Can I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, very good. Just making a note here.
I would say, Carl, if gonna cost you another $5 or $10 above that, we're gonna cover you after.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Carl, do you have an idea of when it would be a good idea to turn the water on?
Actually, we can do it anytime. I got my seasonal lines turned on, and we've had some cold weather and it hasn't been an issue. We could do it at any time. We would have to set the timer so it goes off at the appropriate times. And the matter of just turning it on. If you'd like to get together to do that, I don't know if you want to do it before you leave or whatever.
I'm leaving at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, so
It's not gonna work.
sorry.
It's not gonna work. I got a delivery coming at 8 o'clock on a flatbed, so it's not,
Yeah.
that's not gonna work.
Right, so let's look to right when I get back and we're opening up the garden, if that works
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, we can do that.
They're really probably not going to be planting very much that first weekend.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good time to wait till just before we open the garden.
Okay,
Yeah, we can do that. Remind me, please.
okay.
Next item on the agenda, Bloomington Community Orchard. Okay, let me tell you what that's all about. I subscribe to Mother Earth. And the most recent issue in there had a really nice article about this Bloomington, Deborah, Indiana?
Indiana,
Bloomington, Indiana Community Orchard. So they've been doing this since 2013. In addition to having an orchard, they have a nice layout here. If you could read the article, it's available online. They have pear trees, and I think they have grapes and strawberries. And they also have other plantings like asparagus beds and things of that nature. And the way it works is the volunteers gather the fruit and donate it to the local food pantry. And also they allow just about anybody in town, I think it is, to go in there and pick whatever they want, provided they can eat it there and then. They can't go in with a bushel basket and harvest all the apples or something like that. They can just go in, and they want to eat a few strawberries or a few blueberries while they're in there, they're allowed to do that as well. I just thought it was a great concept, and I think it's something we might want to think about. And perhaps in the coming winter months, we might want to discuss it a little bit further. Deborah has a personal relationship with Bloomington. I don't know if she wants to elaborate on that, or should I keep it a secret?
It was a good place to grow up.
When she was a teenager about 15 years ago,
Exactly.
she lived in Bloomington for some period of time. So she was surprised.
Town. Who doesn't have fun in a college town when you're a teenager?
She was surprised when I brought this to her attention. So she's very interested in it. And so, again, it's not a project that you're going to just jump into and go full bore and take on and do. But it's something we might want to consider and talk about in the future. So I just wanted to bring that up, bring it to your attention.
There is another farm right in Leominster that has the town farm up there. It's a Shoalden Farm or something
Yeah.
like that. At the
Yeah.
orchard up there.
That's a big operation.
No, it's a big operation, but I mean, it's just something you might
Yeah.
take some feedback out of it, to.
Yep, something we could look into.
Oh, and the Hudson Community Garden does a lot of perennial stuff. It's, I went to visit it. It's unbelievable what they're doing over there. And I know, Buddy, you've seen it. They're starting to lay all kinds of perennial beds around, and they've got, bulbs and herb gardens, and just a really interesting group of people. So I plan on going back to learn a little bit more. I had a tour of it a couple weeks ago. And it's a pretty neat place.
I
So-
saw it online, and they got a fantastic layout with mostly, what I could see was raised beds. I don't know if they have any open plots, but
No, they
everything I saw.
don't.
What's that?
They're all raised beds,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're all raised beds, gravel pathways, permanent fencing all around. It was a
Mhm.
beautiful layout.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's another aspect that we could look at outside the main footprint of the current garden, is perhaps, along the same lines of this orchard community garden, maybe a herb garden, separate perennial herb garden, perennial flowers or what have you. And some blueberry bushes, perhaps some strawberries, perhaps some asparagus, and other things. Again, not something that's going to get done overnight, not something we have to jump on right away, but I think it's something we ought to consider.
Huh?
And if you'd like to comment on that, please do.
Yeah.
If not, we'll go on to the next subject. Next subject is no meeting in May, because we're all too busy. That's all I have, folks. Anybody have anything else? Observations, complaints? Whatever? I will try to draft something in the next few days, if I can find the time. And get something out to you. I don't know what the deadline is. I guess they probably need some input prior to the town meeting, which is in the latter part of May, as I recall, 24th or something like that.
Yeah, it's late.
But certainly would get something in well before that, but I don't think it has to be done instantaneously. So I will do what I can to try to get it out for you to review. Make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Motion
Second.
made, second, all in favor? Very good.
Aye.
Thank you, James, for hosting tonight again.